Welcome to another episode of 2021 War Room Reports. We have a very intriguing guest tonight, Justen Gammel, with Big Nickel Scout Podcast. Is that correct, Justin?
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. I see you on Sports Ruckus Scouting as well, with Justin Walters and that crew. You guys do a phenomenal job. And I guess it only makes sense how I kind of came across you. We were talking about it before we kind of got on, the Zoom here. Was just, sometimes in this industry you come across guys that just, they have an opinion. They have a quote unquote aura about themselves that's a little bit different. They're not trying to follow a narrative. They speak up for what they believe in, and it's a bit different. And I think that's healthy in this industry to get different viewpoints. Very healthy. You can't just be set in your ways. So Justin, what I want you to do is just kind of introduce yourself, tell them a little bit about your background, where they can find you on social media.
Right on. Justen Gammel. So I got my background playing college ball, semi-pro ball. One of my coaches was he was a recruiting director for a big high school thing. He kind of got me into scouting. He used to play in the NFL, Coach Mulaney. And another one of our coaches was a scout for the Seahawks for a while. So I kind of just grew up with that, and it got me into the evaluating process and that whole thing, and just took off a little bit. I used to be with Draft Bible, Rick Saratella and those guys. Now it's me and Justin Walters, like you said, Joey Red Zone. We do the Big Nickel podcast. And I'm on Twitter at Gam Scout, Gam like my last name, and then Scout. But yeah, just trying to do what I love to do, like a lot of us do. So sometimes it's tough. It's hard to, like you said earlier, it's hard to kind of go your own path and not follow the consensus and kind of do things your own way. But I mean, that's the rewarding part of it. So, this is a fun process. This is the best time of year, bro. We're a few hours, less than 80 hours away or something from it. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. I know it's like, man, I already can't sleep as it is, but I'm definitely, staying up late, making sure I got all my ducks in a row. But without further ado, let's get this going. I'm actually going to share my screen and show some of my rankings. Kind of go back to that. For those that would like to view this, it's on blog.dbarnesuniversity.com. It's my website. If you want to just double back and see these lists, I will update it here soon with my all positions ranks. But I did this March 16th, and I just want to, have Justin on here, just kind of cross-check it a little bit. I'm gonna ask him specific questions about certain guys, and just talk ball. Justin, as you can see, you got number 1, Jerron Merrick; 2, Andre Cisco; 3, Javon Holland; 4, Richard LeCount; 5, Paris Ford; 6, Jacoby Stevens; 7, Ardarius Washington; 8, Jamar Johnson; 9, Richie Grant; 10, a surprise, DiCaprio Boodle; 11 through 32. Yes, sir. As you can see those names, top 3 there's Hamza, DeMar, Sean Wade, Sean Davis. So what kind of surprises you? And I'm gonna let you just freestyle it. What kind of surprises you about the list? What do you like about the list? And obviously these are a mesh of free and strong. And I'll just let you take it away.
So I will just say right now, I can't see anything on my screen. It doesn't show your list. It doesn't say anything. It's just black. But I heard you say that Merrick is your first guy.
Okay.
And I agree with that, man. I think he's been one of those guys that he's been talked about as if he doesn't have, there we go. Okay. He's getting the treatment of he's not the best athlete and all this other stuff. I got to tell you, I haven't seen that. This is a dude, when I turned to him on in 2019, he was everywhere. The way that he can overlap and mirror routes and read concepts, and his understanding of spacing is unreal. He's a pro playing in college right now. This dude is just a pro. His performance in 2020 against Oklahoma was unreal. He took away so many throws that I was like, oh, Rattler's going to hit it. And it's insane how he can take away more than one route at the same time. So like I said, he's a pro. I think he's a better prospect than Marcus Williams was coming out of Utah. But I think he's in that mold. He's going to be the true free. But the crazy thing about Merrick is he can come and play slot. He can play man coverage on tight ends and slot receivers. And he's patient. He's not scared to get beat. I mean, there's a lot of things just to love about his game. And he's my first safety overall as well. You got Cisco, Holland, and LeCount. I loved LeCount early on, man. I loved LeCount. I know he didn't test super great, but I'm kind of wondering if that's coming off that car crash or motorcycle crash, whatever that was. Wondering if he's healthy. Wondering if he's actually running the way he's supposed to run. But that's another dude who plays fast. He plays intense for a smaller dude. Andre Cisco is fool's gold for me, man. He is a playmaker, but then he is all or nothing. He's either make the play or get beat. He reminds me a lot of Carl Joseph coming out of West Virginia, where it's like make the highlight or just straight up, like I said, just get torched. I think he plays a little bit through a straw, meaning he struggles to see things kind of outside his immediate vision. That can be cleaned up. It's hard to say in their, defense what that can really be attributed to, if it's more his skill set or if it's more the defense. But I like Cisco. I think he's an athletic guy. He hits. He can play man coverage. He's just a tough evaluation. Some people have him in like their top 2 or 3 safeties like you do. Some people have him way far down. And I think that's just kind of like what do you want out of your defense? What do you want out of your safeties? I liked Holland. Holland was tough in 2020 or 20. All these opt-outs are killing me. But his last year playing, it was tough because they had him in the nickel and you didn't see him do much some games. Like you would go a whole game and wonder if he was on the field, and you can't really blame him for that. That's just the role he was in. And he's doing his job, but it was tough to get a good feel for his evaluation. So I like his skill set. I like his athleticism, the length he had. But he's another guy where you're like, I don't really know what I'm getting yet. It's going to be up to the team and the role that he's in. The main one I will say that I don't love on here was Paris Ford. I don't think he's draftable for me, man. On tape, I felt like he was slow. He wasn't a runner. Like anytime in the open field, I was just like, man, he's like galloping and he's barely moving. He threw his body around. I like that. That was really cool. I fall for those physical safeties, but I didn't see a guy that really gave me anything. He didn't have an NFL frame. He didn't have NFL speed. He just wasn't doing anything that I felt translated. I felt like he was a little bit, leaning on that recruiting reputation when he was coming out of high school where he's the big dog. And I feel like that the name just kind of crept on people. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. But for me, he was an undraftable. I liked Ardarius Washington. He was one of my favorite guys. If he was 5'10", 195, we'd be talking about him probably in the first round, which is crazy to say that TCU has potentially 2 first-round safeties, but he's not going to go in the first round just because he's itty-bitty. 5'8", 180 is tough, man. I know he's fast, he's quick, he's physical, he's tough, he's rangy, he's smart, but it's hard to say that a 180-pound guy is going to last in the NFL the way, being physical, or even making just wrap-up tackles. You know what I mean? He kind of reminds me of LaMarcus Joyner. I think Joyner was even bigger than he was, though. He might be a Nickel Roby-Coleman type, but I think Nickel Roby-Coleman is pure slot. I think he can do a little more safety, like legit safety. You're just going to always worry that he's going to get hurt. You know what I mean? So I love Richie Grant. I love Jamar Johnson. Jamar Johnson didn't test great, but on tape, the dude's a baller. Same with Richie Grant. There's not really much Richie Grant can't do. Hamza Nasruddin is the wild card of the bunch. He might be the best safety in the NFL in 3 years, right? Or he might be a guy that we're like, he was fun to watch in college. His skill set is insane. His speed is insane. His size is insane. But he just kind of took some plays off. He was injured. He was just inconsistent in all possible ways. His availability was even inconsistent. There was times where he, like I said, he was injured. He just couldn't get on the field. So I don't love the safety class. I think it's deep, but I think there's a lot of guys on here that are all or nothing. Divine Diablo is another one where from Virginia Tech, big dude, freaky athlete, but again, inconsistent. He was a former wide receiver. Ball skills are there, but it was just hard to figure out what his strengths were and what he was consistently good at. Tyree Gillespie is probably the one I feel really good about. Tyree Gillespie, the Missouri kid. He is fast. He runs the alley well. He's physical. He feels like a safe pick. He was kind of another guy that I watched and I said, this is a pro playing college. He might not have the high ceiling of some of the other guys athletically, but I think Tyree Gillespie is a starter in the NFL for sure. I think he's like a 10-year starter that he might not get a second contract with his first team, but I think he's always going to be that guy that wherever he goes, he's going to find playing time. Just because the way he plays with his hair on fire and the way he's going to pick up playbooks wherever he goes is nice. He's going to be a baller.
Well, that was in depth, man, and that's exactly
Sorry.
what I wanted. That's exactly what I created this. Because the guys like us we're gonna love it. We're gonna love this content. If you're not privy to it, you're gonna be like, what is he talking about? But I knew exactly what you were talking about. But I have to go back because this is the kind of content that I did want to create as well, is that really having a cross check. Because this is what NFL scouts actually do. They have other guys from different areas come back and make sure they're on their P's and Q's. So with this Cisco, you gave it an excellent evaluation with him, and I tend to agree on a lot of things. And like you said, you did make this point, in which I will agree and confirm is it's what you want. Now, having that single high guy that can read and react, his ball production, 13 interceptions, is I think the highest in this draft class. So if you're looking for a single high guy that can, read, react, make the play, make a break on the ball, that's your guy. But if you're going to ask him to do, a lot of other things, that might not be your guy. Like you say, he sees the game through a straw. He doesn't have very good that peripheral vision. So that's not your guy. But specifically for that free safety, single high, he's your guy. Another guy we went through was Paris Ford. What I saw on tape, yes, a very athletically limited player. But like I said, we love that physicality from him. And I look at him as a prospect where you just ask yourself, what can he do? What can he do? And if you can just put him on the field and keep him near the line of scrimmage, whether just to maximize that physicality or special teams even. I think that you could use it in that space, but that's not a top 5 safety, is it? I'm not describing a top 5 safety necessarily, but to me, I just saw enough flash to where maybe he can be worked with in a zone scheme where he can read and react. Another one is Jacoby Stevens, who he could who knows where he'll play. He's like Swiss Army knife. He can play linebacker. I think he is a little bit limited as far as a true safety, but you never know in these defenses what you can do. You mentioned Divine Diablo. I think he's one of those guys too. You put him in a cover 4 kind of scheme where he's in the slot area. I think he can cover tight ends. Like you said, it's a deep class, but it's not for a term that I used earlier on the podcast. It's not a very potent class.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and I can't agree more with Hamza Nasruddin. I mean, I feel like he is an incredible player, but you just don't know about his availability. Down the line, he's been often injured, but I mean, he has all the skill set in the world. Another guy we didn't really mention was Eric Burrell out of Wisconsin, who's really not being talked about and probably won't even be drafted. But I really like his tape. This dude is just he plays with his hair on fire. And he might be one of those guys that I really like late that might end up in the XFL, but I really like him. So that's somebody.
Those Wisconsin guys always play hard too. They always play hard. That's one thing you can count on.
Absolutely.
It's one thing. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask about one more guy before we transition. Is Christian Uphoff? If you kind of watch him from Illinois State, I believe. If you do you have a read on him as far as how he projects to the next level?
I have not studied him, bro.
Okay.
No. Yeah, he's one of those guys.
Yeah, because he was at the Senior Bowl, and got some accolades there, but it wasn't like he didn't really stand out to me when I went back and watched the video and stuff like that. But I do have a list. And
I didn't get him.
Yeah, that's fine, man. I mean, you can't watch everybody. Like I was saying earlier as well, in a podcast, like you'll be watching the draft and it's like day 3 and they'll call somebody, name that you thought you might have covered. And
you're like,
yeah, right. It'll be like Dalton Smith from St. Louis Community College, and you're like, what the crap? I didn't even get to study this guy. But
You're like, I didn't know that college existed, bro.
exactly.
Yeah, that happens every year.
Exactly.
Every year.
I did have this list that I think you've seen before. It's on my phone. The best athletes in the 2021 draft. And I just wanted to kind of talk to you about these players. And I'm gonna start on defense.
All right.
We got Jason Owe, Jalen Phillips, Jonathan Marshall, Milton Williams, Michael Parsons, John Davis, Baron Browning, uh, J.C. Horn, Marco Wilson, um, Wiggins at safety, and Coyle at safety. Who out of all these freaks, quote unquote, do you think has the best opportunity to kind of translate that athlete to actually being what we like to call a high level and operating football player?
Wow. That's a good list right there. That's an athletic list. I like the linebacker class this year. I think Jamin Davis, um, he was a late study for me. And as soon as I turned on the tape, I was like, dude, I don't know how I didn't see him when I watched Kelvin Joseph. But I mean, when you're watching a cornerback and linebacker, your eyes are in different places. But I mean, Jamin Davis ran 4.4 flat or something, or 4.48. I don't remember. But at his size, I mean, he's kind of what we wanted Parsons to be. I love Parsons, and Parsons is an absolute psycho freak athlete. But I think his tape wasn't what I hoped it was. You know what I mean? They kind of just let him freelance and do whatever. So you didn't really see functional athleticism, functional football athleticism, where Jamin Davis was really doing everything you'd want. He was the read and react, the key and diagnose, the really get in there and rough people up in the box. Like you saw everything you needed to see from a real linebacker. Baron Browning was another one. I think they moved him back this year to his natural outside linebacker spot. So there was a lot of times where being on that outside, he's reading the slot receiver, a route, the run play, the quarterback keeper. So a lot of times it looked like, oh, he's not moving. He's just standing there and he's processing slow. But you're like, well, he's reading like 9 things right now. Like, give him a break. And then you'd see the plays where he got to read just 1 or 2 things, and the dude is a freak. There was, I think it was Indiana or Nebraska game where he's reading one route going north-south. He rolls off of that route, reads the east-west coming at him, and just delivers a blow to the receiver and just destroys this guy. And you're like, oh, man, like that click and close. Then you see him against Penn State, and they have him lined up out wide against Pat Fryermuth, the tight end, and he's in man coverage against him. And I'm like, bro, that's a miss. Like, Ohio State messed up, right? No, he backpedals, mirrors him, goes up and makes a play on the ball, gets the PBU. And I'm like, that was a cornerback play. And I think you saw the speed from this kid. You saw the hip flip. You saw a lot of things that from a 6'4", 200, 6'3", 250-pound guy, you shouldn't see. I think his coverage ability is what sets him apart from kind of the rest of the linebacker class. And the rest of the linebacker class is just as freaky as he is. But I think he's the one where you see the flashes in coverage. And like, that's what we talk about in today's NFL is the coverage ability. You have to cover. He has the size of an edge rusher, and he rushed off the edge a lot at Ohio State and did it well. I mean, the kid's got burst. He's got everything you could want. And like I said, if you can't cover, you can't play. Parsons can't cover. Jamin Davis can cover, but it was raw. It was raw. I mean, you see he can do it, but it's still coming on. Where Browning has that pedigree of doing it. And I think he's going to be a freak in the NFL. And then Jason Owe is just he's an interesting study, bro, because you knew he was going to test the way he runs in the 4.3s at 6'4", 260. That's an alien. First off, he's an alien. He's a predator. But then on tape, sometimes you'd see that get off. You'd see, I mean, the freaky the get off, the length, the body control. He has so many tools, but got 0 sacks last year. He had 0 sacks. Granted, he had a million pressures. You know, like you'd watch all of his tape and you're like pressure there, pressure there, pressure there. Quarterback's getting rid of the ball. But I mean, there were a lot of times too where you'd see complete no plan at all, and you'd see a dude that you're like, is he athletic today? Just because some of his snaps he'd get off the ball and it was slow, it was sluggish, it was late. he would kind of just go at the tackle's chest, and you're like, and get stalled, and that was the end of it. So it was one play of elite flash and one play of I don't even know if he's gonna be a starter in the NFL. He's that guy though. I think if you put his tools together, the length, the bend, the get like there's untapped potential for that kid. I think he is Myles Garrett level freak as far as just be an athlete. He's elite. He's one of the best we've maybe ever seen. Period. I think sky's the limit for him. And then Jalen Phillips, you mentioned first. I mean, he put it together this year. He came back from concussions and quitting football altogether. Transferred from UCLA to Miami. He's got bend, size, lateral quickness. He's got the feet to make counter moves and inside moves. I wish he had a little more power, but I think the power can be there. He just needs to learn that he can use that. Some of these guys don't understand, like, I'm very, very strong. If I split, if I go right down the middle of this tackle, he's going to get pushed back. I think he's learning that. So he's probably the edge rusher other than Kwity Paye from Michigan that I'd say has like the highest pedigree. Like he's a safe pick. Injuries aside, just based off tape, he's a safe pick. You know what you're going to get from him. You're going to get a skilled edge rusher who's very, very, very athletic. And I mean, that's what you want. That's what teams want, right? Like, so if injuries check out, that kid's a top 10 pick, and he might be the best defensive player in the draft. J.C. Horn tested crazily, but I don't see. He's a guy that he looks. All those tests are coming forward. All those tests are not what cornerbacks do. Cool, you can jump high, jump far, you can run fast. Can you look smooth in short areas? Can you chop your feet? Can you transition and flip your hips smoothly? I don't know one game I watched this year where he wasn't grabbing and bear hugging everyone he played. And he got a lot of PI calls, but in the NFL, he's only going to get more. I know it's a hot take to say Horn's not a top 5 corner for me, but he's not. I mean, his tape straight up just wasn't that great. It wasn't that good. You watched Kelvin Joseph from Kentucky. He is as smooth as it gets. He is as bursty as it gets. He doesn't need to grab anybody. He covered Kyle Pitts all game. The only time he got beat by Kyle Pitts was he was started 10 yards off. Kyle Pitts gets a running start at him, and Trask makes a good throw in an in-breaking route. And the funny thing was, Joseph actually recovered on that route. He just attacked the throw a little too shallow when he needed to attack it more upfield. If he takes the right angle, it's a PBU still. You know what I mean? And Pitts took that for a house call. But other than that, Joseph stymied him on the outside. Justin Campbell from Georgia, another freaky athlete, just so smooth and easy and patient. The only problem he has is when the ball's in the air, he panics. But he's a guy that you got to bet on because he does all the things J.C. Horn does, or is supposedly doing, but he does them well. He looks good in short areas. He can do, he does all the cornerback athlete things good. The cornerback athlete is a completely different game than just being an athlete. Usain Bolt can run the fastest of all time, but he's not going to come and play cornerback. That's cool that you run fast, but cornerback is very different. I played cornerback and safety my whole life, and I know it's different. I know I can run really fast sometimes, but I'm like, dude, this slow kid beat me because I just couldn't flip my hips today. And I had to grab him and try and bring him down and get a PI call. So I'm not saying J.C. Horn's bad, but he's a late first rounder for me. And I think you really have to coach the grabbiness out of him because that's tough. When a guy's relied on that his whole life and it worked for him in college, it's tough to get that out of him. But I think he's going to be a good player. He's physical. He's got a chip on his shoulder, and that's probably an understatement. But I just think there are better corners in this class. There are safer, more technical corners. But yeah, I mean, this class is not short on big time athletes at a lot of positions. I mean, even look at quarterback. You got Fields and Lance and Lawrence and Wilson. Those dudes are all kind of freaky in their own way. So yeah, just this. I think the first 32 picks, we're gonna be in for a treat, man. Just watching these big dogs that can move at every position come off the board. It's gonna be fun.
Absolutely. You explained that Browning and Freiermuth play very vividly because I remember it was on the left side of the field and the left corner of the end zone. And I was like, a few plays before that, Freiermuth kind of got the better of him or something like that. And then I was like, how is he going to respond? And then as soon as they motioned him out, I was like, okay, here's your chance. And he definitely, answered the bell there. He's a freak. And then one thing transitioning from linebackers though, because I did want to, before we kind of close here, two prospects that's kind of giving me fits as far as trying to find, what are they, and am I tripping? Do I think they're, am I underselling them a little bit? But Cam McGrone, I think I'm saying the name right, and then Chris Rumpf. How do you feel about those two players, and how do they fit at the next level?
Okay, so McGrone was one of my favorites. When he was healthy, I think he might have had the best pure linebacker tape, especially in the run game. He was probably the only linebacker that consistently brought it to block. Like climbers got to a lot of guys in this class, like guards climbing, tackles climbing, centers climbing, getting to that second level kind of ruined a lot of these linebackers. McGrone was the only one that not only brought it to them first, but he would attack with the right shoulder pretty much every time. I mean, I think it was the Indiana game. They kept coming up to him, and as soon as they came off the ball, he would meet them. And not only did he meet them, but he kept the right shoulder free, and he either made the ball carrier go where the defense wanted him to go, or he got to stop himself. He's physical. He's fast. He was a big time recruit coming out of high school. The dude can run. The dude can straight up run. And then in coverage, you saw him not just being the guy that can, backpedal to his landmark and stop. He could feel things in front of him. He could feel things behind him. He could feel things developing. And I think there was a play in the Indiana game as well where the running back ran a wheel route or something, and he Chris Rumpf. I was just talking to Chris Rumpf, and I don't know what to do with him because he played edge, sort of. He played off-ball blitzer. He did a lot of things where I was like, that's cool. You look awesome. You're very smooth, easy athlete. He knows how to blitz. He knows how to stay clean. He's that monster in Monsters Inc. That's like the villain, and he's like tall and slender, and he like moves around. He reminds me of that. Where you're like, dude, people just can't get a hand on him. The problem is in the NFL, people are going to get their hands on him, and he's like 215 pounds, I think. So I think he's going to get moved to off ball. The problem is we haven't really seen him do true off ball things, but I think the athlete is so intriguing that you do have to take him. And I mean, you can see that he loves ball. He's not passive. He's not, sluggish out there. He's not dragging it. He wants to play. So I think wherever you put him, he's going to take to it, and he's going to be kind of a beast. It's just, is he a 3-down player? Is he a 3rd-down only player? Is he a blitzer? Can he learn coverage? You know what I mean? And I'd bet on the kid. I mean, if he's there in the 3rd round and my team needs something of the sort, a hybrid something, I'm taking him. If not, he might fall further. But like I said, long, smooth, fast athlete, pretty good. That's a pretty good thing to bet on. There's not a lot of guys that fall to the later rounds that are big time athletes, and I think he's one of those. So I mean, like I said, I'm sorry to say I don't know where you put him. I don't know. I can't. I don't know definitively a take on him. But bet on the traits, bet on the athlete, bet on the tape that he's given you so far, because what he's been asked to do, he's done well. Why can't he continue that?
Right. Well, I have to go back to the lab then. But definitely, I got a good read. Appreciate that on Cam McGrone, because I need to go back and see what I was missing. So that's something that I'm definitely going to do. I'm going to ask you.
He was tough, man. He was tough.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to ask you one more question in terms of edge guys and then safeties. Then we're going to close. Give out your information again, and then having closing remarks. But who is your most overlooked edge rusher in this draft class, and your most overlooked possibly safety that we didn't mention? A guy, because every year there's always some guy that's getting sacks that I'm like, where did he come from? Or like some type of zone safety that I missed out on. Who are, those are two positions that I really don't want to miss out on. Who do you think are overlooked guys in those spots?
just a beast. Uses his length. His length was like in the 80s. It was crazy. Like he's that guy where he gets off the bus, and if you're on the other team, you're like, oh, I don't want to play this guy. Like, no way. And like, it pisses you off because you're like, I don't want to do this for 60 minutes, but I have to. He's intimidating, and he used. It wasn't just for show. I mean, like on the field, he was a monster. Florida State sucks, so he didn't get a lot of like true pin your ears back, we're ahead, so the other team's passing, let's go after it reps. He didn't get a lot of those. When he did, he looked great. He's got the bet off. He's got the get off. He's got nice feet. Big time traits. I always say bet on the big time traits, especially at edge. He's that guy for me. I think I don't want to use Danielle Hunter because like that's somehow everyone's example, but he's that guy where he's going to get to the NFL, and in 2 years we're going to be like, how did he fall to the third round? Like, what in the world? He's a top 50 player for me. Safety, man. I think Wiggins from Cincinnati or Caden Stearns. Caden Stearns, another guy that was huge coming out of high school, man, a big time recruit, like very sought after, and he chose Texas. His tape was interesting. He was passive. He didn't hit. He looked not even lost in coverage. He looked disinterested. But there were, like we say this too many times each year, there were those flashes where he would turn it on, and you're like, man, that's the guy. Like, that's the guy that we saw coming out of high school. That's our boy. I think, especially in this safety class, you get to that third, fourth round, it's depleted. If he's still on that board, you say, screw it, man. This is a big, he has got the size, he's got the athleticism. Let's see if maybe something was going on at Texas and he wasn't feeling it. Let's see if there's reason behind what happened, why he didn't perform. But let's take this big athlete and let's see what he can do on our team. Let's, worst case, we swing and miss, but it's a calculated risk. We kind of know what we're getting, but we know what we know what we might not get, but we know what we might get as well as far as the positives, right? So he's that guy that I know he's been overlooked, and I kind of dropped him early too because I was like, come on, no. But when you take a look at the big picture and the overall class, it's not filled with big time athletes at safety. So I think he's one of the ones that third round comes around, you start looking at the board and you're like, a lot of our guys are gone. Caden Stearns is who you probably take.
Gotcha. I've actually seen people say he could play corner. Do you think he could play corner?
Hell no.
Right. I'm like, you're getting. I appreciate the creativity, but I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So the first player you said we kind of cut off there. I'm not sure if the recording will pick it up. You said Janarius Robinson, right?
Janarius Robinson. Yeah.
Making sure it wasn't Kane though, because we only got the back half of you talking. So.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, Kane Doe's good too, but Janarius Robinson, like the 80-something inch wingspan, big dog, big strength, good feet, good get off, good size, good bend. Like, he has everything you could ever want. Florida State just didn't get those reps. They didn't get to pin their ears back. So
exactly. I love him. I'm glad you mentioned I love Janarius Robinson. But thanks, Justin. Thank you for your time. I know that during this time, we have lives away from football, and it's tough to find time, but I appreciate you finding time to hop on War Room Reports. Just tell the people about any projects you got going on and how they can find you on social media.
back. Sorry, you cut out. You froze for like a good 10 seconds right there.
Okay. Did you hear what I said? Where did you miss?
No, I just heard tell the people.
Okay. So thanks for getting on. Right. Thank you for getting on.
Yeah.
Do you have any projects on the way, and how can they find you on social media?
Oh shoot, man. I think it's our connection, bro.
Okay. Well,
my bad.
You can find Justin at what? Gam Scout?
Gam Scout, yeah, GAM Scout, right there on Twitter. Hit me up, talk some ball.
Gotcha.
I'm nice sometimes.
I love it, man. Do you got any projects coming that people should be looking out for?
Me and Justin Walters have been getting after it. We have some things we're going to do for 2022. We left the Brawl Network recently, and we're going to figure out our next plans here once this draft ends. So I don't know. Stay tuned. I'm not sure yet.
For sure. We'll be looking forward to that, and I'll be sure to let my followers know once that decision is made. So thanks again, man. Take care, and we will see you soon.
You the man, Charles.
All right.